Hi, and welcome to the episode of Walleye Chronicles. This episode is sponsored by the one, the only Lure Lipstick out of Davison, Michigan. If you ever fished the D and you've been to the dip net, you know Lure Lipstick. They are the original home of the log perch, and now the home of the greatest jerk shad known to man. So get out, get on lurelipstick.com, get yourself some plastics they're going to put fish in your boat. Hand painted plastics, infused plastics, great people. Go to lurelipstick.com and put more fish in the boat. Also along for the ride today, Superior Fishing Products. They're out of Arctic Mine, Michigan. They have a full line of rod holders, trees, tracks, and accessories for all your big water and small water trolling needs. And with a name like that, you know the quality is there. So check out superiorfishingproducts.com for all your trolling needs. Hi, and welcome to the episode of Walleye Chronicles. This week, Mr. Michael Keyes of Keyes Outdoors. He has been innovating on the video side of fishing since before the internet. He's seen TV come and go. Now he's still innovating in the world of streaming. His videos, solo videos, musky catches are out of this world. So sit back and enjoy Mr. Mike Keyes. One last thing before we get started. Please remember to like and follow wherever you're watching this. Make a comment, those help as well. The likes and the follows really matter. I thank you for doing them. And remember, there's two things you can do every day to give somebody a good day. It's one, give them a big ass smile, and two, take them fishing. Welcome to another episode of Walleye Chronicles, where I get you guys out of the boat or off the shore and behind the camera so we can talk some fishing. With me this week, Mr. Michael Keyes of Keyes Outdoors. He is a renowned Wisconsin muskie guy. When you're talking muskies in Wisconsin, there's a few things you'll know. You'll know the muskie shop, you know Hayward, Wisconsin, you know Petenwell, you know Joe Butcher, and you also know this gentleman from his great videos. He's been around since before the internet and now into the world of streaming. Mike, how's it going today?
Good. It's going really good. So, yeah,
Awesome.
excited about this.
Awesome. So you've been around a long time. You've been making videos for, I believe, 27 years you've been doing this.
Yes. Yep. Yeah,
So,
it dates me, that's for sure. I started in 2000, and that's like the internet really started to take off probably about 2003, somewhere around there. Um, so back in my day when I started, the only form of media that was out there was television, radio, print ad, and trade shows. That was it. Yeah, right. So
you had to work awful hard to get yourself out there. You were probably every sport show you possibly get to.
it was, and it was when I first started the first 2 years. I aired locally out of Rylander, Wisconsin, and Wausau on just two networks, NBC, and that was it. You could buy local, your local stations, if you will. And I did
Yep.
that for 2 years, and then cable just started to take off, and Charter, which is now Spectrum, uh, came out, and they were really one of the first streaming platforms out there. And what they did was basically they set up a state wide. So where like before on NBC, I would just get like maybe 120-mile radius around Wausau and another 120-mile radius around Rylander. But Spectrum, which Charter at the time, made it to where anybody who had cable in the state could get the programming. So that was huge because now it went from just two small markets to statewide.
Yep.
And so then what I did is that was 2 years that I did that, and then I kept applying, and that was another thing. It's not like you just called up like I started with Fox Sports North, and it's not like you just called them up and say, "Hey, I want to get on your network." You had to submit a pilot, and because there
Oh,
was so much competition, because there was such limited space, that you were competing against people. So you had to put a pilot together, a half an hour show. You had to send it to them. They had to review it, and they had to say, is this right for television? And back in the day, everything was tape. So it was way more technical than what it is now. Anybody can load up a video on YouTube, but back in the day, it was broadcast, so you had to have color codes. Like when the show started, a title, they called it a slate, a countdown, 10, 9, 8, 7, and then it was nuts. And I'm glad I did it because what it did is it was broadcast. So and I'm self-taught, so I mean, I had to learn all of this. It wasn't like I went to school for this at all. So it was like, okay, now I have to learn how to program television, how to make shows that are acceptable for TV. And so I sent in my pilot. They turned down the first pilot. So, and then they told me right out, hey, you have audio issues, you have this, we got to get that fixed. The next year, I submitted another show, fixed all of that, and I was accepted. And then I was on Fox Sports North, which was now getting me to North Dakota, South Dakota, Iowa, Wisconsin, Minnesota. So now it was 5 states that I was now airing on. So, and that's really what set kind of set me off as far as viewership goes in building the brand.
Well, I would take it the more states you added, must have been easier to add sponsors and things on those nature.
Exactly, and that's what especially back then, it was, they wanted eyeballs. They wanted, and they still do. I mean, you go to, if you're a YouTuber and you've got 25,000 subscribers, you're prime candidate for getting sponsorship. But if you only got 2,000, well, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Marketing has always been and will always be about eyeballs. How many people are you reaching? And that's what the bigger companies want.
Did you ever feel like you were changing your content to help out your marketing strategy in those different areas and different
Yes.
states?
Yeah, one of the things that um in television that you had to do is the total show length was 28 minutes and 30 seconds. And so that gave you, because everything runs at a half an hour. These shows are half an hour. So at 9 o'clock a show starts, 9:30 a show starts. So there's a minute and a half of that 28:30 left that had to go back to Fox so that they could promote other shows,
Oh, yeah.
whatever, sporting events, hockey games, whatever. So I had to give them a minute and a half. Then you had to have 3 commercial breaks per episode. So, 6 minutes in, the show would start, you would have a commercial break. Second, and it was 3 of them. And so we did that because that was the format. That's the way everything was programmed at that time. So I kind of revolutionized some stuff because I came to I was sick of it. It was too many commercials. And when you break down a 28-minute show and now you put in there four commercials at 30 seconds, you know what I mean? Three
Yeah.
times, you're really
Yeah.
eating away at your content. So
Right.
then what I did is I went to them and I said, I don't want I want one commercial break up front because my bigger companies that I work with at the time, that they were programmed for a 30-second commercial. Yeah, that's their marketing team, like Great
Yeah.
Clips, Jack Daniels,
Yeah.
Miller Brewing. These companies had 30-second professional commercials made. So then when it got into the second and third commercial break, what I did is I just said, I'm not doing that no more. What I'm going to do is Musky Innovations, my rod company, my
Mm.
glasses company, whatever. I'm going to not do a commercial. I'm just going to wear and talk in the show of making the show. I'm going to talk about your product, but still continuing to make
Yeah.
content. And
Yeah.
so when I went to Fox with that, it like blew their mind. Like they just could not comprehend what I was doing. And they were like, well, you got to say, and I'm like, I'm buying that whole half an hour, that 28:30. I own it. I'm buying it.
Yep.
So it doesn't matter if I have commercials in there or not. I'm buying the rights to that 28:30. So I literally had to put the first show together and send it for their approval on it because it was just totally mind blowing for them.
That's crazy. That
Yeah.
is a lot. That's a lot of what we see now too. Is that kind of commercials and along those lines.
Yeah, thanks to this guy. Right?
Yeah. So I want to get into, obviously you're a musky guy from Wisconsin. Um, what right off the bat, what's the one thing that you learned that impacted your fishing the most when it comes to musky fishing?
You know, I would have to say keeping it real. Um, and what I mean by that is that if I'm out on an adventure filming and I don't catch a fish in 3 days, um, my ego isn't that big to where I can lie to people and say, hey, I caught this fish 2 hours in because I'm that good. I'm not that good. You know what I mean? So if it took me 3 days to catch that fish, I wanted the audience, my viewers, to know that, because in reality, they're smart. They know. You just don't go out and catch muskies at will. You know what I mean? It just doesn't happen. But yet, if you were looking at my competitors at the time, um, they made me feel stupid. Like how is it that they catch 7 fish in 1 day? Well, then I find out that it was 4 days that they caught the 7 fish, and they just weren't changing their clothes. So it looked like they were catching those fish in 7 days. There was a lot of smoke and mirrors stuff going on back in the day that was hilarious. And how that set me on my filming was, again, when I started 26 years ago, the first 6 years I did multi-species. So I did 26 episodes a year. I did hunting, ice fishing, walleye fishing, bass fishing, muskie. I did it all. And I did 26 episodes a year. And I landed a company by the name of Fluger. And so Fluger, which was a big deal for me at the
Yep.
time,
That.
big company. And so they called me up and they were like, hey, we need you to go to northern Minnesota. You're going to be filming, and I'm not going to name the names of the people, but if I did, you would know who they are in the walleye world. They were big names. And you're going to hook up with this guy, and you're going to film an episode with them because they were on the Fluger team at the time.
Yep.
And so this is before cell phones. And so we get out there and we're on Cass Lake, and they had a walkie-talkie on the console of their boat, and it was just squawking like crazy. And I'm like, why do we have a walkie-talkie? What is going on here? You know what I mean? And I said, hey, can we shut that walkie-talkie off? And they were like, no, we can't. And I said, why is that? They said, because we have other people out fishing, and when they catch walleyes, they're going to run them to us and we're going to rehook them. No, true story, dude. And I was like,
Dang.
yeah, I was like, are you kidding me? And they were like, no. So we legitimately in our boat caught a 27.5 inch walleye, beautiful walleye, and super proud because I'm new at this game. You know what I mean? I'm like,
Yep.
thank God I hit record. Everything's good. I got the whole thing. I got the whole thing. I'm pretty pumped. They hold the fish up, take it out of the bag, hold it up. Bob, do their talking point. They put the fish back in the net. He turns the boat a little bit. They open up the center rod locker. He gets another hat, another shirt, another lure,
Oh,
takes that fish out, rehooks the lure in the mouth, says that he caught it on this bait, puts the fish back. This happened 7 times. 7 times. Yeah, I seen him kill that fish, and when they were done killing the fish, they just chucked it overboard. Didn't even eat it. And I am not that dude. So we got back to the resort. This is a big deal for me. This is at the
yeah.
time a lot of money. And we get back to the resort, and I didn't want to be a part of any of this. So I started packing up all my camera gear, all my stuff. And again, if I told you the person, you would know who it is. But that person came into my cabin and said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "What I seen today sickened me." And I said, "I don't want no part of it." And I remember him pounding me on the chest and he said, "Young man, you better learn how this game is played or you're not going to last." And I
Wow.
said, "Okay." So that's how this game is played. Monday came. This was on a Friday, or this happened Saturday. On the way home, again, no cell phones. I had to stop at a payphone. I called up Larry Smith, and
Yeah.
Larry and I go back a long time. And Larry's the real deal. He's legit.
Yeah.
And I called up Larry and I said, "Larry, this is what happened." And Larry was like, "I told you it was going to happen. They're a bunch of cheaters, and stuff." And he goes, "Where are you at?" And I said, "I just crossed back into Wisconsin. I need a show. I have to get a show because I'm on a timeline." And
Yeah.
so he says, "I'll meet you Sunday in Petenwell, where I live, and we'll go out." Well, we ended up going out, catching 14 fish, getting a legit, real show out of it. Monday came. The head of marketing for Fluger called me up and he said, "You embarrassed me." And I said, "I embarrassed you?" I said, "You should be ashamed of yourself that you're allowing this to even happen." And he said, "You're fired." I said, basically the old, "You can't fire me. I quit. I don't want no part of what you're doing." You know what I mean? That was a big hit to me and my family at that time. That was a $25,000 deal. You know what I mean? And so now, because my anger, I have to now, tell my wife that, "Hey, guess what? I just lost 25 grand." You know what I mean? But it set me, answering your question that started this whole story, was it set me in a projection of that I was going to tell the truth no matter what. And so, because I'm not that good, and people that fish, that really fish, know that you cannot go out and just catch fish at will. You just can't do it.
Right.
And so it set me in that.
Are you tired of the same old plastic patterns and colors? Well, check out lurelipstick.com. You will find the best hand painted infused plastics on the market. And the best part, they're made right here in Michigan. New for this year, the Pro Swimmer and Jerk Shad model to go along with the world famous Split Tail series. Lure Lipstick also has a wide variety of attractants in wax and liquids. And remember, they're the home of the famous perch jelly. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram. And remember, Lure Lipstick. Get hit on.
Area, that direction of saying, "I'm going to keep it real. I'm going to show people. I'm going to tell people, day 3, no fish." You know what I mean? And I'm not going to save the big fish for the last fish. I'm not. I'm going to show it the way, right? I'm going to show it the way that it went down, the whole trip. And it was
Right.
probably, at the time, it was devastating for my career and devastating for um, me personally, financially, but in the long run, here I am 27 years later. And if you look at the comments of what people like about Keys Outdoors, is the honesty, is the real deal. And,
Yeah.
and so that, I always tell people things always happen for a reason. And sometimes the reason at that time may not make sense, but in clarity down the road, it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it said that I'm not going to play this cheater's game.
Right.
And there was, trust me, a lot of smoke and mirrors going on. And there still is a lot of smoke and mirrors going on in this industry. So,
For, for
um,
sure.
and I know who the players are. I know who the players are, and I know who the real deal guys are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, it just, to me, it was an insult to my viewers, because they're thinking, or wanting to think, that the viewers are that dumb, that
Yeah.
they really believe these guys are that good. You know what I mean? That they can
Yeah.
just go out at will and catch fish. And trust me, there's nobody in the world that good. Maybe
No.
Van Dam, maybe Van Dam. You know what I mean? But that's about it.
Yeah, that's great. That's what I truly like about your show, is that a lot of these shows, I can tell you from watching them when the certain camera angle comes on and about a minute in, okay, here's gonna be a fish caught, right? And I can't. I generally most shows I can pick out when a fish to be caught. You can tell the music turns up, the whatever happens, they zoom in on the shot. It's like you'll zoom in on something and nothing happens. It's just the background, and it's like you're showing us the grind that we all do all the time. You're just putting it on for us to see at home, and you do it in such the way you film is such a it's you get everything else with it too. Your backgrounds, your B rolls, the the one thing I love that you do is you give us B roll, but you give us the audio of you fishing yet,
Yeah,
right? Even though I know that you didn't film that shot of that grass on the water while you're fishing because it's impossible to happen, but you still give us the fishing in the background. We know, hey, he just made a cast, he's reeling, he's walking a dog, he's doing whatever he's doing while this is happening, and that's what I like about the videos. What you do really well is it's almost like you're fishing in a way. Like when we're out there fishing, we're casting and we kind of get our brains get lost at shore every now and then, and we see things and this and that, and it's a grind for 90% of us. Right? I mean, it's
yeah.
not it's not easy. It's not I'm gonna put the boat in the water, go up the first spot, make two casts, tell what we're gonna happen, boom, and caught a fish.
Exactly, exactly. And maybe in the bass world, because I did some of that. I also produced for a bass company. I produced a 3-year series for them. So not only was I doing my stuff, but we went all over the country and filmed their stuff, produced a show for them. And the bass was pretty simple, like, especially coming from the musky world, it was like, okay, I can literally get 3 shows in 3 days where I don't even know if I'm going to get a bite in 3 days,
Yeah.
So it was, on the bass world, you can do that. And that's why I pioneered the GoPro stuff. There was nobody that, and the reason being is at the time when I started my career, you would always see these hook sets. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I got one. And
Yep.
what they were doing is, how do you sit there for 10 hours with a cameraman and you got two guys fishing and you just happen to be every time on the guy who catches the fish and you catch the
Right.
hook set? That was all fake. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So what they would do is the camera guy would sit there, a guy would hook up, grab the camera, and start filming, but they would never get the true hook set. So then what they would do is, one of the tricks in the trade was they would get a dip. You know what a dipsy diver is?
Yep.
They would get a cast out a dipsy diver because you could reel it in. Then when you set the hook, it would start fighting. The rod would start bumping. So they were faking the hook sets with the dipsy diver. Then they would go to the real footage, and that's how they would put it all together. And so
Man.
then what I did is I said, I don't want that. I want to be the first guy ever to catch these hook sets as they happen. How do I do that? So what I did is I bought, two high 8 cameras because GoPro didn't exist at that time.
Yep.
And so I bought two high 8 cameras. I made a pole, put one camera facing the front towards the guy and another camera facing the back towards the guy. And then it was, because it was tape, you could run for an hour, and then you would have to rewind the tape. If you didn't have any action, you'd have to rewind the tape. And then if you did get action, you now killed that $17 tape that it cost you. And you would have to then write on it that, okay, 10 minutes and 30 seconds in, or 35 minutes in, we had a
Yeah.
follow. And then you would have to categorize, put that tape away, put a new tape in, and everything, because it was all AC driven. It was everything was ran off of 12-volt batteries. So I had two batteries, 12-volt batteries, that in a converter, that I would have to convert the energy to run these cameras. It was cutting edge, but it was a pain in the butt. But I wanted to be the first to get those, and we did. And
Yep.
that really separated us from everybody. I mean, in the fishing world, I don't care what species you
Mhm.
were fishing, You know what I mean? That really put us on a pedestal. And then one day out of the blue, a buddy of mine goes, "Hey, there's this company out of California. The dude's a surfer and he's making this camera called GoPro." And he's like, "You should check it out, Mike," because he knew how I was filming all this.
Yep.
Well, I bought one of the first GoPros, and the footage was absolutely shitty. It was so grainy, I mean, it was so bad, but it was so
Yep.
revolutionary at the time. It was cutting edge. And then we evolved. So all these YouTubers now that you see with all these angles, that
Mhm.
was me. That was, you know what I mean? That was Keys Outdoors. We pioneered all of that.
I have to say, I watched one of your recent with Jet Boat, and the amount of cameras you had and how they, and I literally paused it to see, because you set yourself up in the back, and you set up for two filming areas, the front and the back, but you set yourself up in the back, and all the cameras you have, how they're pointed in all your shots, is you mix them. As it's actually crazy to me that you figured out all your poles and your cameras and this and that, everything set up. It's pretty awesome, and you don't have to change every hour. You can probably go a couple days nowadays.
Well, yeah, exactly. Today, the technology is just unbelievable. And I mean, it's so much easier now to do it. But again, and that's another thing too, is there's times where I do film with other people, but I do film a lot by myself. And it's just about having all of the angles. And over the years, you learn where those cameras should be pointed.
Yep.
And editing, it's a nightmare because, now in the editing process, I got to go, okay, here's a catch. People don't understand this in filming. I think the biggest issue now isn't really the filming. It is the file management of all of this. That's where it gets crazy, especially when you're shooting everything in 4K and
Yep.
there's such huge files. And
Mhm.
it's so now it's really about managing it. And when I'm running 8 cameras, you know what I mean? It's okay, angle this, angle that. And then I got to cue everything up in editing so that it seems
All together.
seamlessly. So it's, you get good at it after a while, but really what the issue is, and any YouTuber now will tell you that it is file management is really very time
Yep.
consuming.
Yep.
So,
Yeah. I
I
don't
mean,
know
I
too
get
many.
done. What's that?
I don't know too many that don't travel with huge drives with them, because there's just no amount
Right.
of storage space. Everybody has a block of 5 terabytes or whatever that they carry with them to plug in everything, even your phones and stuff. To plug them
Exactly.
down the phones to keep everything, because it's so much data you have to go through and stuff, and it does make it very difficult. I think at some point, how long does it take for you to put an episode together, to go through all that stuff and put it together?
It's, to be honest with you, it's when I get back off of a shoot, um, depending on how the shoot, how many fish we caught, how long I was gone, um, it will literally take me probably a day to a day and a half just to download all the footage. So that's a day. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're talking 8 cameras, you know what I mean? And time lapse, and now I'm working with the 360 cameras, and they're
It's,
huge files.
yep.
So and then you got to go in and you got to edit the 360. So,
Mhm.
so I mean, so it will literally take me about a day and a half just to download the footage, store it into, again, we're talking about the file management,
Yep.
into episode one, this camera angle, this camera angle, this camera angle, all of it. And then I get into the editing, and the editing will take me about 50 hours to do a show. So from start to finish, but I'm creating all my own music,
Yep.
all my own titling. I'm doing it all, but
Nice.
typically about a week, 50 hours. And I don't edit at all until come like November. I start airing all my new shows start in January. So right after the rut, because I'm a bow hunter, right after the rut, then from there until April, it's every day, 7 days a week,
Wow.
editing 13 episodes
So you don't edit
and
as you
building
go through.
content. What's
You
that?
just you don't edit as they happen. You save it all and do it in a couple months period.
I do because the reason why is, and I would get so mad because, early in my career, it was like, oh, did we get that catch? Did we get that catch? Let's go back on it. Shit gets deleted. You know what I mean? And misplaced. And I learned a long time ago. And not even that. I mean, like, so I had 1 year where I've been with Apple forever. I had 1 year where I literally lost a half a season of filming. My computer crashed, the hard drive crashed, and I never backed anything up.
No.
And so now I back everything up 3 times. It's backed up into 3 spots. So everything is backed up because, the time and the money and the effort that went into that shoot. I mean, it just, again, I guess this, I mean, I do very well for myself as far as money goes, but I don't think I ever want to sit down and figure out my hourly. You know what I mean? Because, I could probably do as good as that I'm doing at half the time working for, a corporation or something else doing. But it's never been to me about the money. This is what I've wanted to do. I've always been an outdoors guy. So it's always been about the adventure for me. It's always, I mean, to me, people ask me too, I'm getting kind of long in the tooth here. And people, especially my wife, she's like, how long are you going to be doing this? You know what I mean? And she's like, and I said, if I were to retire, what would I be doing? I'd be fishing. So
Right.
I might as well get paid for it, right? I
That's
mean, I'd
true.
be fishing and hunting. So, I mean, I'm going to ride this pony until I absolutely can't, until two things happen. One, physically, I can't do it no more. Or secondly, I become irrelevant in the world. And then
Well,
that's where you go, okay, hey, people aren't digging my stuff no more. Now it's probably time I bow out.
I don't think the latter is going to happen because I mean, one of the industry things that you kind of rolled into that is fishing and filming and doing it by yourself. There's so many guys that are doing that, and you've been doing it basically forever. You kind of taught everybody how to do it with, the GoPros and all this kind of stuff that you've been doing. I do wonder though, because fishing wise, musky fishing is one of the more physical things you can do out there, and you're spending all day with an 8-9 foot rod throwing these big half-pound lures. I mean, that's your body breaks down after doing that for decades and decades.
It does. And I feel it, you know what I mean? But again, a lot of it is conditioning, and stuff, and proper diet and good sleep and stuff like that. I mean, and exercising because, you know, uh, it's kind of interesting because a really good friend of mine who is on Lake St. Clair, he trains like a football player for fishing. He's a musky guy. So I mean, he's lifting weights, he's building up his quads, I mean, standing on a boat, people don't realize
Yeah,
this. You go on that big water and you're in 2 foot waves all day long, your calves are getting a workout that no
yeah.
machine could ever do. And so people don't, and you're burning. Like, I had a buddy that one time wore one of those bit wrist things on how
Okay.
much, and just by fishing, how many calories he was burning a day was mind blowing.
Right,
Like damn near close to him running a marathon. You
right,
know what I mean? And it was all of that action that's going on. It really is a physical, very physical game. There's no doubt.
right.
And
I
weather,
always think it right. I always
yeah.
think it's funny because we say no bananas on a boat, but most of us Wisconsin guys, entertain a couple drinks around the water the next day, so you're kind of dehydrated, and all of a sudden around the afternoon, your calves are just tearing you up. You're probably gonna start cramping if you didn't pile of water out more long. But God forbid you take a banana with you because you ruin the whole day fishing. So yeah, and
Right.
the funny, no one really realized that. So you get, up in age. I even started the last couple of years going, okay, you need to start, when tournament weekends come in, you need to start paying attention to what you're doing, get ready to go because otherwise you get on the water and Yeah, that's standing up all day long. That's tough. I mean, you're on your foot's on the troll motor, and you get ankle issues or whatever you're doing, and yeah, it's very physical, a lot more than physical than people think. Not
It
just
is.
throwing the
They
rod
think of
around.
fishing as being this, you're sitting there with your bobber out, you know what I mean? And you're drinking a Bloody Mary, and you know what I mean? And yeah, that may be one way to fish, but the guys that are doing it, whether you're a walleye guy, a bass guy, a musky guy, you know, that are doing it seriously, yeah, it's a hell of a workout. And not only that, when you're on the road, I eat very well, but it's really hard to do that when you're traveling
Yeah,
because we are getting off the water at 10
yeah,
o'clock. Go try to find a steak at 10 o'clock at night. It
right,
ain't happening, you know?
right.
So
Yeah,
thank God for Quick Trip, right? Because at least you can get a hot meal, you know.
correct,
And that
correct.
always drove me nuts about northern Wisconsin is, oh, we're the tourist fishing capital of the world. Really? Why do you shut down at 9 o'clock? You know these fishermen, if you're that sincere about
Yeah,
fishing, you know that these fishermen are coming off the water at dark.
yeah,
Keep your bar, keep your restaurant open until maybe 11 o'clock at night. You'd get a
yeah.
lot more business.
Yeah, on the water at 6, off at 7, 8, 9 o'clock. Depends how the night's going, and it's like that. Yeah, when you travel, that's pretty much what it is. I mean, I always joke when I go to town, a lot of times I still try to play like a young kid and sleep in the back of the truck and stuff, so I don't gotta keep expenses down. People are always like, well, you're so much. I'm only really sleeping for about 5 hours, right? Because by the time I
Right.
get back and go through the boats, make a quick dehydrated meal, probably, and then crawl back in the truck, and then you're right back up at 5, getting everything, taking the cover off, and going right back at it again.
Yep.
It's that's again why your videos hit so good, because it is a grind. A lot of us do grind away, and not a lot of people. Um, that's why your videos do hit so well. So I do. It's time for us to get to musky fishing, though. It's gonna be
Okay.
great. But okay, here we go. So first I want you to tell me, anybody out there, how should we handle a muskie when we catch a muskie? I think that's a pretty important thing. If a novice person gets a muskie on, what do we got to do? Do we keep it in the water? How do we go about making sure that thing can get released properly?
The best thing is, again, keeping it in the water. There's a company now that just came out with it's called Net Buddy, and you walleye guys and you musky guys out there should really check it out because especially if you're fishing by yourself, you got a fish in the bag, and now you got to go get your hook out tools and stuff. And okay, how do I keep that fish, how do I keep that net from going overboard with that fish in? And the Net Buddy
Yep.
solved, I think it's probably one of the top inventions in fishing in the last 5 years, to be honest with you. And I've been doing this a long time. It's just a
Yep.
game changer because one, now that that fish is in there, you can lock that net into that bracket and you can relax. You can just take your time. It's locked into position. It is going nowhere. Now you can get out your hook set tools. You can get everything. You want a picture. You've got time because the fish is in the bag. It's in the bag. It's in the water. It's
Right.
it's sitting good. The only time that you have to worry about it when it's in the net like that is if you're in heavy current. Then what you want to do is you want to make sure that you flip the boat so that the boat is breaking that current and the fish
Yep.
is on the least current
Lee side.
side. You know what I mean? But
Yep.
other than that, on a lake situation, you can now get your camera ready, get your tool. Having the proper hookout kit is really critical. A hook cutter, a good, like a Nipix, not the
Yep.
cheap ones that are out there. Spend the money. They're $70 and it'll last you forever. So spend the one time $70, get a Nipix cutter. And if you think that you're going to have an issue releasing or unhooking that fish, don't even think about it. Cut the hooks. Hooks are cheap. You can
Yep.
always put a new hook on. So don't hesitate on that. Having a long needle nose pliers that you can get down in and remove that hook. Having the proper tools is really, and don't rush it. take the time and let that fish sit, let it recoup, and then, properly release it. And, when you release a fish, sit there for a good 10, 15 minutes, make sure it doesn't surface up again. You know what I mean? And then get on with your day. But having the proper hook out equipment, Nipex, needle nose pliers, a jaw spreader. So what I do is, okay, what I have found to work the best instead of a jaw spreader is, I'm trying to think of the proper name of it. Oh God, why do I struggle with this name? But anyways, what it is I can literally open the jaw of the fish and pin it against the gunnel, which then opens the mouth. Um, what the heck is it? I don't know why I struggle with this, and I use it all the time. Um, but what that does is it allows you, and it's the only time you should use that. People will use it to show fish and lift
Oh,
up fish.
yeah. God, what's that?
Oh,
I know what you're talking about.
yeah, boga grip.
Yep.
Boga grip. So I'll use a boga grip and I will then pin it against the gunnel. It will automatically open that fish's mouth. So you can surgically get down in there. With a jaw spreader, you're not pinning that fish to anything. So you put
Yeah.
the jaw spreader in, that head is still going all over. That's when things get crazy. You can get
Yeah.
hooks in your hand and now you're pinned to a 40-inch fish and, you're out in the middle of nowhere. Things can go south real quick. So have the proper tools, use that boga grip only for that purpose. And I have things on video that you can look up on that we've showed the proper way of doing that to release the fish. But that is the main thing, is just having the right equipment with you. So I take a box, like a toolbox, where I put all of that stuff in there. So I know
Okay.
exactly where it is every time. So when we get a fish, I call it the hook out kit. We grab the hook out kit. Everything is in that box. Everything I need right there at my feet, so I can do the best job I can on releasing that fish.
Yeah, jaw spreaders is to me is one of the most dangerous tools in the boat.
It,
They really can put you in a bad situation. Have you ever got tangled up with the fish in the net?
I have. I have. I got out. But I also had a fish one time that was in the net, and I was trying to get the top water actually hooked into the net, and it was a smaller fish. And it was a big bag, and so I'm letting that out, and that damn thing flew across the net and bit me in the arm. I mean, just laced me. And I mean, you could see the jaw marks on my forearm. And I think he was like, I'm gonna get you, you son of a gun. You got me, I'm gonna get you right back. And that bled like you wouldn't believe. Didn't go to the doctor, but maybe should have. But had to stop fishing for the day because I couldn't get it to stop bleeding.
Wow,
So yeah. And I wore that scar for about 3 years
that's crazy.
before it just totally faded away.
That's a nice scar though.
Yeah, that,
Um,
that was.
okay. Also now, so what's the mystique behind the figure eight? In musky fishing, that's kind of like a mythological move that has to happen every time. There's so many. Obviously, with your videos, we've learned we get to watch them now. Um, what's with the figure eight? Why is it so effective?
Because you're dealing with the apex predator, and what a muskie does is it's an ambush creature, and it follows its bait. It follows, and it's looking for that right opportunity. That's why the figure eight is so powerful, because that bait is go tracking straight. That fish is behind it. And then all of a sudden you go into the figure eight, you now have taken that lure and you've changed direction. So that muskie is thinking he's on to me now. So I got to eat him before he gets away. So that's where the figure eight is. They are chasing animals. So they're following that lure. And then when you go into the figure eight or a big L or a big circle, you're getting that fish. That fish, I think, subconsciously or in its mind goes, this bait, whatever it is that I'm tracking, is on to me now. So this is my opportunity to eat it. So that's where the figure eight comes in, and they follow a lot. I don't know. I shouldn't say I don't know. I know through other people that use side image or live scope
Yep.
that they've told me that you get a lot more follows than you ever see. So you don't even see half of the follows that you get. So they're following your bait in, and then so I think maybe a lot of it is curiosity, like what is this thing? A lot of it is just that apex predator that says this is my prey, this is what I'm going to eat, and so then when you change direction on it, that fish, excuse me, that fish thinks he's on to me, so I better eat him now. So
I always wondered because I always thought that they would be the boat would throw them off because they're coming at the boat that they wouldn't get boat shy like other
they
other
do.
fisheries.
They do. We get a lot of them that especially water clarity has a lot to do with it too. Super clear water. Um, that's why one of the my figure eighting sucks now, and it's because of age. You know what I mean? But back in the day, when I would literally see a fish coming behind my lure, you would slowly squat, making your profile very
Oh,
small so that it wouldn't see you standing up. You don't wear bright colors. That's why grays, blues, skyline type clothing is very productive. And then again, just not sharp movements. You know what I mean? Like just
yeah,
slow movements because they are, when those muskies are this big, everything's trying to eat them, birds, everything. So they're constantly aware of what's
yes,
going up above them. Plus, not only that, nature has made it to where their eyes are on top of their head. You know what I mean? So they're always a little bit below
yep,
the lure or the bait that they're chasing. So again, keeping it, and again, a lot of it has to do with pressure. You'll find that on some bodies of water that are heavily pressured, those fish are very spooky, so they've been caught before. And so they're a little bit more leery where if you go to places that just don't get a lot of people, then you'll see these fish going around ten times on a figure eight because they don't know what it is. They've never had to feel. But I guarantee you this, once you do hook them, that fish is going to be pretty leery on the next figure eight that it comes in on. Even though
right,
their brain is about as big as a pea, nature only says a coyote is only going to stick its foot into a trap so many times before it says,
right,
I'm not doing that no more. It's
right.
conditioning.
I do think one of the most exciting things in fishing is those figure eight hookups at the boat. So much happens because it seems like a muskie. It's you if you're going to get it, the net has to come out pretty quickly. You got it again. There's not a lot of playing them out. But once that gets in that figure eight and that thing hits, and it's just madness, and all of a sudden it's in a net. It's to me, it's one of the coolest things in fishing. That just everything happens so fast, so close to the boat, and it's over so fast too.
It is, and the funny thing about that is that in all of my catches over, and I don't even know, I mean, I'm thinking probably over 600 videos that I've made. Um, I've never had a catch go more than a minute. Is that crazy?
That is
I mean,
crazy.
a minute when you think about it. I
Yeah.
just spent 4 days grinding for a minute. You know what I mean? It's like, but that's what it is. Never have I seen one, unless maybe it was snagged. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Have I ever seen, where I've ever seen it go over a minute long? So, and to be honest with you, it's that the figure eight is what got me into musky fishing. Is like I said earlier when we were talking, I was doing multi-species back in the day and hunting. Still a big bow hunter, and I was, musky fishing is very similar to hunting a trophy whitetail deer. You know what I mean?
yeah.
It's so much similarities in it that's why I love it. But what it was is I was filming a show with the first two guys that I ever filmed with for musky fishing, and I was filming. I wasn't even fishing. I was running camera at the time. And he had about a 38, 40 incher come in. And he went around at least 8, 9 times. And that thing just kept missing the bait, missing the bait. I'm watching all of this through the viewfinder of the camera. And my heart is literally coming out of my throat. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, this is the coolest freaking thing I've ever witnessed in my life besides shooting a big whitetail deer. My
Yeah.
heart's pumping. It's crazy. And that is what hooked me into the world of muskie. After that, then I befriended these two people and they were like, hey man, we're going muskie fishing next week. You want to come? And I just started getting more and more into the filming of muskie fishing, and I left everything else behind. And at the time, I was told by several people, big mistake, big mistake. No one can make a living just at muskie fishing. There's no way. You got to do the multi-species. And I loved it so much that I was like, no, I'm doing the muskie thing. So then I went from 26 episodes a year down to 13. And because 13 episodes a year of catching muskies for 13 episodes is a freaking grind. So I mean, it's like, again, I don't want to know exactly how many hours I've got on the water.
That's crazy. Because I would think, like, back in the time that specialty fishing and watching specialty shows was kind of, it's kind of a big thing, especially even back, in the early days, when in fishing was coming out and there was the walleye and the catfish and all those individual sports that kind of got people. I mean, I don't know. I would have thought it'd be the other way around, that you would have been successful, because it's
Well,
something you don't see all the time, because you don't really. Even me growing up in Wisconsin, I had never fished muskies till I was of adult age and decided to go do it myself. It just wasn't a thing unless if you were, up north someplace fishing muskies. You weren't, even though, I was only grew up an hour and 30 minutes away from Petenwell. It wasn't a thing for us. It just wasn't. I
right.
mean, we're northern fishing stuff, and I'm in the state that is, has a really good muskie fishing. So
It's our state fish,
yeah,
yeah. Yeah, it's again, you know what I mean? It was probably financially it was risky because out of all of the fishing, the muskie industry is super small.
mm-hmm.
And bass fishing is like, oh my God, you know what I mean? Then you got walleye fishing, or maybe even crappie behind bass. I
Probably.
think if you take the southern states,
Yeah,
and
for
then
sure.
walleye and stuff, and then muskie is like the pimple on the cow's butt. You know what I mean? I mean, there's only 200,000 muskie anglers in the nation,
Yeah.
so that's a small, very niche market. But one thing that I've learned is they are super passionate.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Probably the most passionate people I know are musky anglers. Um, and it's the golf of fishing. And what I mean by that is that it's expensive. So
Okay.
it's a higher income of people that do it because you're talking reels that are $400 to $600 a piece, a rod that's $400 to $600. I got 6 of them. You know what I
Wow.
mean?
Yeah.
Lures that are $30 to $40 a pop, even $100 a pop now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean it's unfortunately a rich man's sport, but it doesn't have to be. You don't have to treat it that way.
Yeah.
I know guys now with the kayaks are catching muskies. They can buy a kayak. I've filmed out of a canoe, a cheap
Yeah.
John boat. So you don't have to have all of that. Do you have to have one good rod? Yes. Do you have to have one good reel? Yes. A good hookout kit? That's it. And you can get active in the sport and be very, and some dudes now that I know have channels to where they fish muskies from shore. They don't even fish out of a boat, and they're doing very well.
Well, what's
So
what's if you were starting a kit, what's the first 3 lures you tell somebody to buy?
I would say that it would be a topwater, a bucktail, and probably a rubber bait. So whether it be like a paddle, a swim bait. I
Okay,
would say that if you had those three baits, you could pretty much catch fish anywhere you go.
I gotcha. Um, let's forward facing sonar 360. So
Hmm.
the professional muskie trail or PMTT, they banned
Yep.
it obviously for obvious reasons. But people are still obviously using it to catch muskies. Um, I, I use it walleye fishing in my tournament world, so I see a positive part of it. I do, however, have this weird thing that I feel like musky fishing's more of a tradition. It's kind of like when they change the rules of baseball. I don't mind they change football rules. Baseball rules kind of get to me, right? And I kind of feel that way with musky.
Right.
The mystique of the 10,000 cast fish, all that kind of stuff is kind of taken away by drive around the lake, find something 3 or 4 feet long, and throw at it for an hour.
I agree with you. I don't do it. I if people want to do it, that's up to them. Me, I personally don't like it. Because it really it's like bow hunting. You know what I mean? To me, it's a game of chess. It's okay. It's being able to put the pieces of the puzzle together, going, okay, I'm going to fish this particular body of water. Where's the wind been for the last 3 days? Oh, it's been out of the northwest. Okay. So on a map, I'm looking at all the southeast structure because we've had heavy blows. So the biomass is getting pushed up in there. And, then the bigger fish come in and then the predators follow them. It's always about, and then, okay, what time of the year is this particular food source spawning? It's a lot of pieces of the puzzle that I think really keeps your mind sharp. And it isn't about just driving around and, you know, good musky fishermen, you can go, okay, well, hey, dude, why did you catch that why do you think you caught that 4 foot fish at that location? A good muscular guy will say, well, because it had a weed bed, it had good bait on it, the wind was blowing into it, you know what I mean? It was the warmer water out of the lake. He's put all of these scenarios together that says, like a bow hunter, this is why I put my tree stand right here. Because all this sign was telling me that this is the spot. That's the game of chess with musky fishing. That's what I love about it. It's a thinking man's game, and not drive around now. And it's like, well, why do you think you could, talking to a guy with front sonar, it's like, why did you catch that fish there? Well, because my machine told me it was there. There's no logic to it anymore. And that's not what this sport was about. Plus, not only that, the ethical end of it is we don't know what this is going to do to. I can tell you this much, and I know this to be 100% true, is we are finding more dead fish. And it's because in the abyss, in the open water, that used to be their sanctuary. I mean, think about it. You know what I mean? When they were getting too much pressure, where would they go? They'd go out to the deep.
Yeah,
No musky guy is just going to go randomly cast the Leech Lake in the
yeah,
trench, which is huge. You know what I mean? And you may do it
yeah,
and get lucky, but that's about it. But now what these fish were doing is they're moving out. That was their sanctuary. Now what's happening is that is when they are, especially with that product, this is when they're the most vulnerable, is when they're out in that deep. They stand out. And
yeah,
ethically, it's like, okay, a guy sits there and says, okay, I got a fish that's in 30 feet of water. You know what I mean? I'm going to target that fish and bring him up and, expand its bladder. And so we are, this I know for a fact. I've seen more dead fish and I've been doing this for 27 years since sonar has taken over.
yeah,
It's very unfortunate that and not only that, a lot of guys that are now pounding their chest like they're these great musky fishermen, take that machine away from them and you would never even utter their name ever. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
it's put people in a situation where they're really not good fishermen without it. And that's the thing that bothers me as well, is that you want that title. I believe that you got to earn that title. You know what I mean? You got to put the legwork in. You got to put the
Mhm.
grind in. You've got to, you got to be able to do that. And I'm just seeing that a lot of it is just driven so much because of social media. They just want that picture at no
Right.
matter what. They just want that 5 seconds of fame. And, so here's a good story. 2 years ago, I was up on Leech Lake, and the resort that I was staying at has a bar restaurant. So, and it's a very well known resort for musky fishing. And so they came in, and everybody was coming in because the windows were over, the moon set. Everybody was coming in at the same time. So we decided to go to the restaurant bar, get a couple drinks, have some pizza. Well, there was a gentleman in there, and I'm at the end of the bar, and he's talking very loud, trying to get my attention, and I'm not paying any attention to him whatsoever because it's like, and he's like, oh, yeah, I caught this one was 54, this one was 55, this one was 53. I have 11 so far over 50 inches. We go fish all night. Now, there's all night long. My fishing all night long means that I'm fishing, casting all night long. Their fishing all night long is driving around with a 12-pack of beer and looking for these fish.
Oh,
And so finally, I about had enough, and I was like, "Hey, I got to get up tomorrow morning. I'm going to bed." I get up, and he goes, "Hey, Mike, you want to look at some of these pictures?" And I like to think of myself as a pretty nice guy, but I was just tired of it, and I looked at him. I said, "No, I don't want to see it." And he goes, "Oh, why?" And I said, "Well, hold on a minute." I says, "You deer hunt?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Do you want to see a 178 buck I shot last year on a shining light?" And he didn't know what to say. And then he looked at me and he goes, "I know it's cheating." Well, then why do it, dude?
right.
Why do it? You know what I mean? It's like, it's no different. Yes, there's a reason why our DNR has eliminated a lot of technology like a shining light because it is devastating and can be devastating. Thermal drones for hunting was the craze, and now they've outlawed it because it's so devastating. The thing that really bothers me about it isn't the people that are using it, it's the companies that produce it. They're making millions and millions of dollars. Garmin, Minn Kota, all of these companies are
Mhm.
making millions of dollars off of this, but not one of them has said, hey, we don't know what the long term effect is going to be. So why don't we start a fund? Let's take 3% of our gross revenue and put it back into stocking.
Right.
You
Right.
don't see them do that.
Right.
And what they'll do is the minute they destroy that industry, it'll be on to the next thing. They give two shits about what's going on. And that bothers me. That
Mhm.
as a steward of fishing, if you're going to bring this technology in, then you ethically owe it to yourself to know what the results are going to be down the road. And you don't know what it is, so maybe just prepare for it. Because I know for a fact that when they came out with this, they annihilated the crappie population down in Louisiana. You know where that is not allowed anymore at
Yep.
all is in Louisiana because they devastated the
Yeah.
crappie population.
The
And
crappies
a
are hit
pop,
hard.
yeah, what's that?
Crappies were hit hard. They were
Hit hard,
anything, it allows us to find and catch suspended fish so easy now. It's
right?
it's very devastating if anything's suspended. Just different than the walleye tours being able to find suspended walleyes in no man's land. It's just something that, like you said, they would go out to get out away from all get away from the pressure and everything. And now it don't matter. We can track them right down now. And
We can, and the only place where it doesn't work is um, is in the weeds.
the
If
weeds.
now all of a sudden we're finding the weed bite, they're not dumb. I mean, like I said, they have a brain about the size of a pea, but their, natural instinct to survive is greater. And they
Right.
know that there's sitting ducks out there. So now the weed bite is really taken off where that technology doesn't work well. And I've had people ask me, well, Mike, you're using side imaging. What's the difference? And I'm like, the difference is that fish that I just marked is 40 feet behind me. I have no idea where the hell it's going. Is it going east? Is it going north? Is it going down? Is it going up? I have no idea. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
All I'm using that for is really structure, is finding structure. And I
Yeah.
hear that with the front sonar. Well, I just use it for structure. Well, come on, dude. You know what I mean? You tell
Yeah.
me that if you don't see a fish there, that you're not going to throw on it.
Yeah.
And it's the chasing down. That's the
Yeah.
thing. Guys that are locking onto a fish and then chasing it down until it bites. That's harassment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
just
For
not.
sure.
Yeah. So I mean, again, if you want to do it, do it. But don't come crying to me if it screws up and, the fishing sucks no matter what technology you have. You know what I mean? And
Gotcha.
as a person of, and not only that, dude, I watch these guys while I'm out there and there's like, this guy never lifted his head for 2 hours. In that 2 hours, I've seen a bear swimming. I've seen eagles flying. I've seen mink on shorelines. I've seen all kinds of cool
Right.
stuff, and this guy's head is buried into a screen. Like,
Yeah.
dude, we live in that world enough. That's why I
Right.
do this, is to get away from that.
Yeah, it really makes me wonder about fishing in general. And I don't want to be an old guy that dogs on young generations, but you touched on it earlier. They don't younger fishermen don't have if they have if live scopes available to them, they don't have to learn the why or the when anymore. They just have
Right.
to look, right? And the same thing goes with looking down the screen. They don't enjoy, what happens in the shoreline, the sturgeon jumping or whatever you see out fishing. You're just staring down at the screen all day long, and and me fishing tournaments, I'm forced to do the same thing as well. And it's like, this is not a great way to fish. It's not a great way to be. I can use my knowledge of growing up and why the fish should be there and get to this places where I need to be. But the fact that some people just drive around with it going at 20 miles an hour till they find what they got to find, and they don't know why it's there. They just know that here they are. I don't know where they're going to go, but I'm just going to keep looking for them until I find them. Is makes you worry about 20 years what fishing is going to look like, and
Yeah.
if this is something that is ultimately going to ruin the industry, because there's as more money piles into things, there's more people that are pulling to get things, and that's where we have to be as fishermen. We got to be stewards of the land, right? We haven't done, the fishermen and participants of fishing over the last decade don't seem to really stand up and have or want to have a voice in anything.
Right.
It seems like we're just going to take what you give us and we're going to use it and love it and take pictures of it and call it a day. And these companies are using all that kind of against us in a way, really. I mean, they're really using social media and the technology against us to pit against each other while they're just making money off us buying stuff, as
Exactly.
over and over
Yeah,
again.
and like I said, and trust me, don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm old enough to know that, when side imaging came out, it was the same story. The old
Yeah,
fishermen were like, "It's gonna wreck the sport," you know what I mean? So I do get that end of it as well. Is that, it is? Are we overreacting? I don't know. And
yeah,
if I got to say anything about any of it, is that question. We don't know.
yeah,
That sums it all up. If we knew that it wasn't going to hurt the fishery, then I'm saying do it. But that is the $1 million question. We don't know. It's
yeah,
just too new. We don't know what that is going to look like 5 years from now, or what the damage we're doing now is going to be. And not only that, in the world of musky fishing, I have some sponsors of mine that manufacture musky lures, and they got kind of behind this, not realizing that you only really need two baits. You need a tube and an orb. That's it. You know what I mean? So now the
yeah,
Bucktail company, who was sponsoring this person for doing it, you're cutting your own throat as a manufacturer, because what it was in the past is it was in it again, it created a economical environment that where I know a lot of my manufacturers, they sent their kids to college with their companies. You know what I mean? And now you're putting a gun up to your own head and going, well, guess what? We only need 2 baits now out of the
Yeah.
27 SKUs that I have in my line. You know what I mean? Only 2 now. Color doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
It's all about just putting that lure right in the front of the fishes and getting that reaction bite. That's all it is. And so I was talking with them and I said, what are you guys doing? Because it used to be where, hey, I moved 2 fish on the red lure. It didn't eat it. But maybe if I buy a blue one, it'll eat it.
Right.
Oh, you know what I mean? And that's what
Yeah.
it was about. Next thing you know, I've got 26 bucktails in my tackle box of different colors and patterns out it, which cost me money, but more
Yep.
importantly, it helped put those people of those manufacturers' kids through college, paid his bills. You know what I mean? He hired paint company. It's a whole
Yeah. Ecosystem.
ecological system,
Hmm.
ecosystem of manufacturing. So now you're killing that as well. And who's the ones that are really capitalizing on this is Garmin and
Yeah.
Minn. That's it. They're already rich enough. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And
For sure.
that's the sad thing.
My only hope is that over the last decade or so, we've done a very good job, I think, of catch, picture, and release, and
Yes.
people keeping the younger generation is keeping less fish. We'd like to see them eat more fish, but they seem to be out there more for the sport than they are for feeding their families. It's not the way it was, in the 50s, 60s, and those guys are kind of, moving on in life, and they don't, and it's different. Like we don't, we do a lot of that stuff. So I think that's kind of been a positive. I do have a question to ask you about. Wisconsin changed the opener to all the whole year's all open at once now, I believe, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
Do you think that's going to
Uh,
affect anything, spawning rates, anything like that we're
yes.
just on the fish right away?
I do, and the reason well, 2 things that bother me about it is that in northern Wisconsin there is a lot of natural reproduction going on. So leave those fish alone, let them do their thing.
Yep.
That's why it was always set up that way, so that they could get through the spawn and reproduce. And
Yep.
it doesn't matter so much. That's why everything south of Highway 10 was always open, because all these fish, majority of these fish down here are stocked fish.
Oh, okay.
So they're going through the motion of spawning, but
Yeah.
the natural reproduction is happening, but not at the capacity that it's happening in these lakes that have been producing all of this natural reproduction for centuries. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
I don't like that about it, and I don't like the fact of, I relate it to the deer hunting again, because I am a deer hunter. The worst thing that they did was Scott Walker. What he did was he said, "Hey, we're going to have it to where you can just call in or on the computer and
Oh,
register your deer." To me,
yeah.
that it wasn't about that. I get the financial thing of it
Yep.
for the state, but you
Hmm.
killed, as a kid, I used to ride my bike down to the gas station
Yep.
just to see. It was that heritage of
Hmm.
just seeing what was
Yeah.
going to be registered, who shot what. You know what I mean? This is the registration center, the bar in
Yeah.
town.
Yeah.
You know
The
what I mean?
gathering.
People came in, the tavern, they came in, they
Yeah.
ate there, they drank there, they wanted to hang there because all these deer were coming in. And you screwed with tradition. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And that bothered me more than anything on that whole thing with the deer hunting. But I also uh, think of it as the same way as, again, this has been the tradition in Wisconsin for all these years: a northern opener and a southern
Yep.
opener. Leave it alone. What? Hey, DNR, I got this. How about this novel idea? Get off your asses, right, and start doing a better job at what you're supposed to be doing. Start stocking fish. I'm
Yeah.
sick and tired. Don't get me going on the DNR, because they are terrible. You're talking to a guy who fishes a lot out east,
Yep.
in Pennsylvania, New York, Ohio. They got it going on.
Yeah.
Nebraska, they got it going on. They're stocking. That's what they're doing. What does Wisconsin is too much of a good old boy club. So they're always talking about how broke they are. But the minute they get resources in, what is it? Let's hire another biologist at 150,000 a year plus benefits. Can you imagine that salary going into stocking? You know what I
Right.
mean?
What
But
I think
now
is
they're
funny
saying,
too,
go
yeah,
ahead.
what I think is funny is that if it wasn't for, at least in my world of walleye fishing, if it wasn't for the private groups, a lot of this wouldn't get done. I mean, the
Exactly.
amount, like the walleyes for tomorrow in the area alone, and I'm like, what would happen if these private groups people didn't step up? I mean, the DNR's not doesn't seem like they have a plan for anything, and it's the
No.
private groups that are really the ones that are pushing stocking and redoing these things and putting projects together. But they have to go to Lord Almighty to get the stamp to do it. I'm like, they're the ones doing it. Maybe you guys should start paying attention to what they're doing, right?
Exactly. And not only that, you hit a really good point there is, again, you work for me. I don't work for you. All right. Well, I don't understand this whole government mentality like you're above what we do. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? No, it should be this is what we want you to do. Sit down, shut up. And if you don't like that, don't go into that line of work
Yeah,
because you are a public, it says it, public servant. That's
yeah,
what you are. So do what we want you to do or, get the hell out. You know
yeah,
what I mean? And like in the world of musky fishing, I've gotten into this argument with the DNR a million times. Well, we don't want to stock spotted muskies in northern lakes because it's not natural to the fisheries up there. Really? Well, maybe you should have thought about that in the 1970s when you bastardized all of these fisheries up there. There's not a pure fish left. You guys destroyed that in the 1970s. So don't sit there and tell me that these are purebred fish that are up there.
yeah,
You screwed all of those fish up in the 1970s. You were taking fish from here, putting them in here, from there, putting them in there. You were doing all that.
yeah.
So I don't buy that argument anymore. So, and that may work for the young guy that doesn't know that history, but an old guy that has been around a long
Yeah.
time, I know the history. So again, shut up, do your job, and not only that, like, I would love to start an organization where we just go do a GoFundMe account. We buy our own fish and we just put them in,
Oh,
whether you like it or not. What are you gonna
great.
do? What are you
Yeah,
gonna do? Sue me? Well,
yeah,
how are you gonna sue me? That's my natural resource. It ain't yours. You know
yeah,
what I mean? And I would love to do that and just say, listen, if you're not, I just, again, half the stocking on everything again. They're broke. They're
yeah,
always broke. Isn't it funny how government's always broke? Well, then why don't you just sit there and start firing people, laying
yeah,
people off? If I'm running a business, a private business, and I can't, my business is slow, I gotta lay
mhm,
people off.
yeah,
You know
for
what I
sure.
mean? And we don't do that. And I'm sick and tired of it. And not only that, raise your damn fees. How long has our fishing licenses been $25 a year? I
Yeah,
go out as a non-resident. I go to New York. I had to pay $75 to fish
yeah,
for 3 days,
yeah.
and
It's
I
it,
paid it no problem because I wanted to do that.
right. Yeah, Wisconsin is even out of state stuff super cheap, in state stuff super cheap. You know, they can
Yep.
increase. They can increase. $5 a fishing license could bring basically all stocking back to the state because there's a lot of people that fish. It's pretty crazy to me that the excuses and we're not even one of the worst states either. Minnesota's going through it pretty tough right now.
You're
With
right.
one
Yep.
fish limits and stuff. I just came back from Lake Erie a couple weeks ago, and I thought to myself, "God darn it, there's a lot going on over here. There's a lot of fish in the system, and it's just weird how different places. I always would have thought Wisconsin would be on the forefront of things, and as you get older, you realize that it's not always what it was cracked up to be growing up, right? It's times
No.
are changing, and things can really get messed up. Not in a hurry, but they definitely can change, right? And little things that have happened make big effects 10, 15 years down the road that we have no idea at the moment.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's the thing is that there's again, I think that out of all of the places that I've gone and I've wherever there's muskies, I've fished there. I only have four more states And then I've caught a muskie in every state that has them. That's my goal before I retire.
That was
So
my next question. There's 18 states. Which ones do you have left?
I have Maine, Vermont, West Virginia, and New Jersey.
Okay.
So, and I'm going to Vermont next month. And if we do good there, I'm going to shoot over to New Jersey and try to get that shot. And then next year, do the main thing. And then West Virginia. So, and then I've had, I should say a purebred muskie. Because if you get into the tiger muskie stuff, now you're talking a whole different, you're talking Utah, Nebraska, you're talking Colorado,
Yep.
all that. But so yeah, that's my goal there is that I want to get that done. But the reason why I say that is because I've been to these places, so I've seen how their fisheries react, and they're doing a hell of a job. I mean, in Wisconsin is too much of our DNR always, and this goes back to Dreyfus. They're too powerful. They gave the DNR too much power, and that is the problem. Is that they've got too much power, and it's a good old boy club. And they want to, it's always, well, we got to do this survey again and this survey, and they're always doing these surveys, and they're doing all of these, it just at some point it's like, why don't you listen to the guys that are out there? Don't listen to the guy who sits behind a desk all day long. Talk to the fishermen that are out on the water every day. I'll tell you what's going on. You know what I mean? So
It would not be that hard to put groups in each areas together. There's a lot of great guides out there. There's a lot of great people that fish a long time that
yeah,
can help shed light on what's going on at each lake and all this stuff. It would make life so much easier for them too. And
right.
it's kind of a shame that they just kind of look the other way and they know best no matter what, even though they're really not in the water ever.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
Okay, so I want to do a quick couple more things here with you. Well, first of all, one question: what makes you happier, a fish catch, or the perfect camera shot?
That's a tough one. I would say that it would be the camera. I would say that my whole psyche and why I do all this is for the filming. Um, so that's, the fish. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you got to have the fish to put the show together. But again, I would feel terrible. Like to be honest with you, I have never in my life ever fished without running a camera ever. I mean, ever. I just,
That's
and people
pretty.
are blown away. They're like, Mike, leave the cameras behind. Let's just go fishing. I can't. I physically cannot do it because the day that I do that is the day something super freaking magical would happen. And then I'd have to live with myself for not filming it. And it's a sickness. It really is. I mean, it's like, for me, it's never been about, I gotta watch how I word this. I don't want to say that it hasn't been fun. For me, it's always been a business. Always. Um, it's what fed my family. You know what I mean? It's paid my
Yep.
bills. It's always been a business for me. It's never been for fun. Um, that's why, like, when I do go out, if I do go to the bars or whatever and have a good time, it gets a little annoying because people come up and all they want to do is talk fishing. And it's like, that is the last thing I want to talk about. I just spent 2 weeks in a boat. You know what I mean? Doing this every day, 12 hours a day. Yeah, let's talk about whatever,
Yeah.
anything but fishing. You know what I mean? And I get it. They want to talk the fishing, but to me, I'm going out and letting my hair down because of the fishing. I want to just go out and have a good time. And I want to talk about, hey, how are your kids doing? How's the football team doing? How's
Mhm.
this going? You know what I mean? The last thing I want to do is talk fishing. But yet, and it got to the point where my wife would get very annoyed with it because it was like, I haven't seen her in 2 weeks. So we're going out and getting a dinner and going to have a couple drinks. And next thing you know, I got five guys standing around me wanting to talk fishing. And I haven't seen my wife. And so I've kind of eliminated that, you know what I mean? To where it's like,
Yep.
we can't do that because I understand that, you know what I mean? That's the
Mhm.
last thing she wants to talk about too is fishing.
Right.
She wants to
Right.
talk about our kids and what's going on in their lives and our grandkids and stuff like that. So it just, yeah, it's for me, it's always been about the business. So I would have to say the camera is always what pays the bills.
I gotcha. I gotcha. I can tell. I can generally tell when I watch videos of if somebody really enjoys doing the camera work. It really
Yeah,
it's easy to see. It's easy to come across. The videos generally seem to get more views, more long term views. It's just different. It's it's more of an experience too. Um, all right, how about lakes or rivers? What do you prefer?
rivers.
I kind of figured that was coming. Big or small water?
Um, I like big water. If I'm gonna fish lakes, I love the Great Lakes.
What's your if I gave you a blank check and you could go move on one lake, which one's going to be?
Oh God. One lake. Um, I would have to say that it would probably be a Minnesota lake. And I would probably say
Okay,
Leech Lake.
fair enough. Fair enough. Um, what else did I figure? Oh, lures. I know. I find them fascinating, musky lures, as like an art form. I've actually
Mm-hmm.
recently started collecting them over the past. I should have brought some in here. I've a dozen or so that just they're just such a folkness to them. Of I don't know if it's the size or the history of them, but they're just so different than any other fishing lures. I think because a lot of them are handmade. You can't. Not a lot of places can. Like you
Right.
said before, there's not a lot of stuff out there to sell. So you pretty much most of them are handmade. I don't know if
Right.
it's that or just you can. There's great used tackle shop places. Tell me a little about lures and what you think of them and what's your favorite lure. Do you have one that you may have not used but is like the coolest lure you have?
It's and this is the honest truth is that I am probably the most um how do I want to say this illiterate lure guy there is. And the reason why I say that is because I've been with Musky Innovations for 25 years. I've
Okay.
been with Musky Mayhem for 22 years. I've been with these companies my whole career. So, it's been like I have buddies that will come up to me and they'll say, "Hey Mike, have you ever thrown the Willy Wonka twister tail this or that?" I'm like, I have no idea what the hell you're even talking about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I'm always sponsored by these companies, I have to throw their products.
Yeah.
And this is a kind of an interesting story. Um, I have Chaos Tackle, which makes the Medusa, which is a rubber bait, and then I have Musky Innovations, which is a rubber bait. Well, I always had an exclusive deal with Musky Innovations, meaning I cannot throw anybody's rubber except theirs.
Okay.
So I then signed probably 6 years ago, 7 years ago with Chaos, and Vince, who was the owner, they just sold recently, but who was the owner, put on a Medusa. And we're fishing in New York, and I looked at him and I says, "Hey," I says, he put it on. I said, "Can you do a figure eight with that?" And he kind of looked at me like, "What?" And I said, "Can you do a figure eight with that Medusa?" And he goes, "Why?" I said, "Because I've never, ever, ever seen one in the water." And he looked at me like I had two heads. He was like, "Are you flipping kidding me? You've never thrown a Medusa?" I said, "No, I seriously never have thrown one." You know what I mean? So when it comes to lures, but I will tell you this much. out of the lure companies in our industry, I've been blessed to work with the three best out there. Like you just can't go wrong with a musky mayhem bucktail.
I
It's
gotcha.
caught more big fish than any lure ever. You know what I mean? You just can't go wrong with a rubber musky innovation bait. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I've been very blessed to be able to fish. You know, we have a saying on Keys Outdoors that if you can't catch a fish on these products, then you probably shouldn't be fishing. You know what I mean? They're
That's
that
fair.
good. They've produced over the years, and it's not just produced for us. It's produced for the industry. Like
Yeah.
there's no bucktail in the world ever designed that has landed more 50-inch fish than Musky Mayhem's Cowgirl. Period. Bar none. Not even
Yeah.
arguable. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
mean, not even close. The stats are there to prove it. You know, and same with a bulldog. You know what I mean? And not only that, I believe this too. There is a time and a place for every lure. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, every lure has a specific place and time to throw it. Um, and you know, knowing that will also help your fishing ability. You know what I mean? I mean, common sense is I'm not going to throw top water in 50 feet of water. You know what I
Right.
mean? There's a
Yep.
time and a place for everything.
Yeah. For sure.
Are you tired of the same old plastic patterns and colors? Well, check out lurelipstick.com. You will find the best hand painted infused plastics on the market. And the best part, they're made right here in Michigan. New for this year, the Pro Swimmer and Jerk Shad model to go along with the world famous Split Tail series. Lure Lipstick also has a wide variety of attractants in wax and liquids. And remember, they're the home of the famous perch jelly. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram. And remember, Lure Lipstick. Get hit on.
Sure. So over your 27 seasons, you haven't just been a taker, you also help out too as well. So tell me a little bit about the Mac Fund.
Yeah, so I got involved with them 2 years ago. We're going to be shooting again this year. You know, I have 12 grandkids. And
Wow.
so kids are very near and dear to me. And you know, when they reached out to me, and the thing with the charity events is I get bombarded with this stuff all the time. I mean, I this week alone I've had three groups reach out to me on, you know, hey, would you want to do this? Once you open that Pandora's box, it's really hard um, because people literally get mad if you tell them no. You know what I mean? And stuff. So you got to pick and choose. But what it was is um, with the Mac Fund, why I decided to go with them is because I looked at their money, and their money is like 95% of everything they raise
Yep.
goes back in. They only have a staff of like 6 people that have run that, but they've raised $97 million over the years that they started for childhood cancer. So that's why I got involved with them, is because when they reached out to me, I was like, well, yeah, I'll check into it. Well, I did my homework and I looked into, you know, into their, you know, their organization, and was so impressed with that return of 95% of every penny they raise goes right into childhood research, and very limited. I mean, these people, the 6 people that are running it, are making a living, but they're not getting rich.
Yeah.
They're doing it because their passion is there.
Right.
And plus, not only that, the guy who reached out to me is a total musky nut. I mean, Mike is a great guy, and he's just he's infected with the musky bug right now. And so, and it was a good event. You know, we raised $13,500 for that shoot, and the companies that were involved, which are some big companies, Michaels, um, you know, a lot of really big companies that said that they liked it so much, they watched it, that if we did it again, they were going to double this year's
Heck yeah.
input.
That's awesome.
So that's our goal, is to raise, around $25,000 on that shoot. That again will go right back into um, research, and so that's why I do it. And like I said, I mean, everybody jumped in. The show, the people that do shows jumped in like to take a vet fishing. Everybody was doing it. I
Yep.
didn't want to be another Me Too. I've
Yeah.
just never done that. I was going to do something that nobody else is doing. That's always
Right.
my philosophy in life and in business and in fishing, is when everybody's going west, I'm going east. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
it served
that's
you well.
why. What's that?
It has served you well. It's sticking with what you believe is the direction it's produced for you.
Yeah, it has. And so I'm very happy to be with them. And again, just a great organization.
Awesome. I got one more question for you. Okay. You only can go fishing one more time. Who you taking? What you using? And where you going?
Oh boy. One more time. Um, hmm. Oh God, dang. Just for a day?
One. You only get one day left. You only get one
One
day to
day
fish.
left.
Who
One
you
day
taking? What
left.
you doing? What you throwing?
Um,
I'll let you take the cameras. I'll let you take the cameras.
I would take the cameras. I would take the cameras. It'd be by myself, and I would probably go to Lake Huron. So,
Beautiful country.
yep, beautiful country, and just nobody's fishing it. So, and you got a shot at just an absolute tank of a fish.
That's awesome.
So that
That's
would be
awesome.
it. But I would take the cameras, because if I was going to say goodbye, I'd want to make sure I said goodbye on camera and say, okay, signing out, adios, Godspeed, and, go from there.
Right. So, do you got anything you want to promote? What's coming up and this year for your world?
We all know, well, in the Musky world, we know of the merge of Musky Innovations, Musky Mayhem, and Chaos Tackle being bought by one guy. Um, so that will be interesting. I hope that he does well with it. That's a big nut to crack. Three of the biggest brands in the musky industry of
Yep.
all time. One company alone would be enough to get me worried, but three of them, I hope that he's going to be able to do it. And I've been with these companies for so long that my relationship is going to continue on with them. And hopefully, he does a good job, and he carries the tradition of this, because these weren't just companies, these were pioneers. These were
Mm-hmm.
people that, you know what I mean? Brad Rue from Muskie Innovations coming out with a rubber bait that was laughed at. People were like, what is this? And then turned into be such a powerful lure. Same with Muskie Innovations. You know what I mean? Number 10 bucktail blades? Are you kidding me? There ain't a muskie in the world that's going to eat that. Next thing you know, 50-inch fish are falling like snow.
Yep.
And so to be part of those companies, that's one thing that I've always prided myself on, is being very loyal to the brands that I'm with. And to me, it says a lot. You know what I mean? It says a lot when I can go back and I can say, listen, out of all of the fishing shows, whether it's walleye, whether it's bass, whether I'm the only company to have four Fortune 500 companies that I've signed and have been with them for over 12 years, each
Wow.
one. So that tells you, that
Mm-hmm.
to me, that is the pride of what I do, is being with those companies and saying, I've been with this company for 24 years.
Yeah.
Think about that.
It's a
I
long time.
signed with Muskie Innovate, or with Muskie Mayhem, when they were in a garage. You know what I mean? In a garage, and now you look at their manufacturing facility and it's state of the art. You know what I mean? And to be part of that brand, in making that brand, has been very, very, very you know, rewarding, if you will, because it shows you that, in my world, people aren't going to pay you and write a check for you, because you're just such a cool guy that they're going to just write you a check. At the end of the day, they're going to write you a check because they're seeing results off of what you're doing. And to me, a good business deal has always been where both parties win. And when you can do that, you feel equal to them. They need you, you need them, and it's a perfect blend. So that's probably my biggest pride in all of this, is to be with those companies for that long, and to know that, again, you know what I mean? I mean, like with Quick Trip now, I'm going on 8 years with Quick Trip. We just did a contest with them, and we do the Keys Outdoors Musky hunting sweepstakes with them. This year we had 208,000 entries. 208,000, dude.
That's
You know what I
crazy.
mean? That's nuts. You know what I mean? I mean, it just, to me, it blows me away that, that the success of Keys Outdoors is that, to where it's like, and it's trackable. You know what I mean? You can put a number on it, because they're like, oh yeah, we just got the results and we had 208,000 entries. You know what I
That's
mean? That 208,000 times somebody said, I want to fish with Mike Keyes. You know what I mean? So to
that's
me,
awesome.
that's huge. You know what I mean? And stuff. So it's been in over the years, over 27 years. I mean, I've been blessed. I fished with pro athletes. I fished with music people. I've met a lot of really really cool people, and not even just celebrities, just really cool, down to earth people. And to me, that is something, when hopefully years from now, when I'm on my deathbed and I'm looking back at my career, I can sit there and say, dude, I've met a lot of really awesome people. And to me, that's probably the coolest thing. So very passionate people that love the same thing I love.
That's awesome.
So
Well, thanks for being on. It was a joy. I had a blast. It went by super fast. We'll have to do it again. I got plenty of questions left to go on forever here.
sounds
Um,
good, man.
no problem. If you're looking to be on an episode of Walleye Chronicles, hit me up on my socials at Matt Snell on Facebook and Instagram, or Smile and Fish on the TikTok. And there's two things you can do every day to make somebody's life better. One, give them a smile, and two, take them fishing. Thanks a lot, everybody. And that concludes another episode of Walleye Chronicles. Hey, if you can do me one favor, wherever you're listening, can you hit that like and subscribe button? It actually really does help in the long run. And if you know somebody or want to be on an episode of Walleye Chronicles, hit me up on my socials at Matt Snell on Facebook or on Instagram, or Smile and Fish on the TikTok. And keep your eye out. Early 2026 merch. It's coming, everybody. So thanks a lot again for watching. Hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you next time.